take a look at all of the different things that are just happening in this one little part of downtown Phoenix, South Phoenix border. Like, there's a lot happening here. One of these bushes that you're going to see throughout here, and you kind of see it sprinkled all around, is this first one. This is called a Brittlebush. It's Encelia farinosa. Some of them will still be blooming on the trails, and you can kind of see their yellow flowers, but for the most part, this is probably the back end of their season. If we're real lucky in Arizona, we almost get 2 springs twice a year where things re-bloom again, and so maybe later on in the season we might get another bloom out of them, but for the most part we'll see them blooming closer to the spring. What's fun about this plant is that it, like I said, is all over the desert. What I love about her is all plants have a Latin name to them. So we have things that we call them typically, that could vary by region, but all plants have a Latin name, so that regardless of where you're at, that's always its name. Some of these names have really fun, magical sounding names to them. So I love Brittlebush because her Latin name is Encelia farinosa. So I feel like every time you say it, there's just got to be something magical that comes after it. This plant has been part of this desert landscape for many, many generations of cultures. By a lot of southwestern indigenous cultures, it's a medicine plant that's used for things like teeth and gum support. So if you had any type of loose teeth, if you had any type of toothaches that were giving you a lot of eye pain, headache type of pain, they would take the resin that would come from this plant and use it as a way to kind of pack your gum, pack your tooth, so that it gives it an extra support and it puts the direct nutrients straight into the gum, into the bloodstream for you. Some of the other uses of this plant would be that you could use it as a tea for stomach pains, and so it would be for mild cramping, typically if it was like associated with dehydration, or if you were having issues with like not being able to have the adequate amount of nutrients in your water. Brittlebush could give you like relief from that stomach cramping kind of pain. It would also be something that you could use for tight coughs that were stuck in your chest, so something upper respiratory would be helpful for this as well. Folk remedy would be for arthritis flare-ups and cold, damp weather. And what they would do is they would use it as a poultice. So they would take some of the leaves, pack it in a hot, wet, damp cloth, and use that to kind of press against the joints or the parts of your body that were kind of achy, as a way to let that soak in and give some extra medicine to your limbs. And then having a little bit of a stimulant effect. One of the things was that if you're going to drink it as a tea, to not have it before bedtime, because that could be something that could be a little counterintuitive for what you're looking for. Things that are non-medicinal uses of it, in the part of California that was occupied by Spanish missionaries, some of the priests would enjoy burning the resin from the plant as part of their ceremonies that they would use. So it has a lot of the same properties to frankincense, and so it's almost like a Western desert analog for frankincense when it comes to its essential oils and its non-medicinal properties. So if you're looking for things, I kind of break plants down in a few different ways. You have your herbal medicinal uses, and then I call them the other uses. The other uses are going to be things like your folk remedies, things that are going to be more spiritual or religious or cultural in nature. They're going to be kind of the ethnobotany of the plant, something that culturally was revered or respected, a process that's been documented enough culturally, though, that it makes sense to share. And so those would be some of the other uses, is if you wanted to get into like the aromatherapy, essential oil, spiritual side of working with plants, this would be a really good analog for something like frankincense. So that is something that I found really, really interesting about this plant as well. A lot of people in the Spanish cultures of the Southwest will refer to this plant as incencio, because it has that incense property that was used by a lot of priests culturally. And it's part of the sunflower family, so it's kind of interesting when you start to think about how plants become related. And so sunflowers are part of the Asteraceae family, which also Brittlebush falls under. And there's a couple of plants out here that also fall under this family, so it kind of gets weird to see how plants are related sometimes. The hairs on the Brittlebush leaves become really interesting because it's a way that the plant helps to kind of keep itself cool when it gets hot out, and it's a way for it to reserve its water resources. They act like a blanket over the leaves to protect them from the heat and the cold, and the white color of the leaves reflects the sunlight, so it keeps the roots in the plant cool itself as well. So this would be something that some indigenous cultures would use to put on the tops of housing or on the tops of parts of their skin that they wanted to keep protected to help reflect the light. So early reflective heat type of protective elemental type of thing. So this is Brittlebush. You'll see it all throughout the path. You'll see it all throughout the desert, but especially when she blooms her yellow flowers, you're going to get a real good treat in the spring. So that's one of our first plants we'll talk about.